So go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, or good evening rather. My name is Pradeep Kumar, and our president is somewhere in the air between England and here, so he's not going to make it today. So I am going to hand this over to Jordan, who will take it from here.
Yeah, thanks, Pradeep. Usually we do some housekeeping items, but since Richard's not here, we'll have to skip that this month and follow up next month. Tonight, we are excited to have Christopher Paidhrin share his personal journey to where he's at now as Chief Information Security Officer at the City of Portland. As mentioned, Christopher is the recipient of the Oregon 2021 CISO Award, CISO of the Year Award. Christopher will share his insight, his lessons learned, and resources he's developed while navigating the cyber threat landscape. So take it away, Christopher.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Greetings, everyone. I'm honored to receive the CIM CISO of the Year recognition. Thank you. Thank you. I'm humbled. I'm also honored to present this evening. I hope to keep my career path and lessons learned TED Talk length or shorter, if possible. Then I'd like to double down on your patience and share tools, techniques, and methods, at least a few of them, that I have found or crafted along the way. My hope is that a few of these lessons that I've learned and some of the discoveries will be of some value to you. And afterwards, I'll be happy to, or between now and the tools, I'd be very happy to have conversation with you to answer questions, take them offline, and I'll be sure to provide Richard, Jordan, and Pradeep with a safe URL link to a repository of free and shareable resources that I'll make available for you to explore and experiment with. And if you remember anything that I say this evening, I hope it is this, that I have found no greater meaning or purpose fulfillment in my professional experience than to serve with kindness. I'm sure that some of you that know me may have been waiting to hear that my purpose is to add lasting value. I do say that often, almost every day, and it is the objective outcome I seek, but my personal fulfillment is in service with heart and kindness, whether for my loved ones, my family, or community. The Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, has frequently said that my religion is kindness, and I am a devoted follower of that principle and philosophy. Maya Angelou echoed this lasting value by saying, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I hope to leave you this evening with a feeling of purposefulness that you find or may find in your work and your lives, and that my story affirms yours. My profession is cybersecurity, though my journey has not been a predictable one. I've not met any other cybersecurity professionals whose journey led them directly into the cybersecurity field or into the Chief Information Officer role. So bear with me as I start at the beginning, because the lessons I've learned in life are the same lessons learned in a professional career. Each inform the other, and the grand turning of the wheel of Dharma, our fate, our destination, our discoveries come down to how we show up and how much we wake up to our role and our potential. So a long time ago, some 70 and more years ago, I was born in the Pacific Northwest. My mother raised 6 children. I'm the second child, and I have 5 sisters. My first experience as a minority. My father worked for Boeing as an electronics supervisor, and then he joined the Air Force as a communications officer. So at 5 years old, our family packed up. We got on several planes, including a TWA twin prop, and we had to land in the Azores to refuel somewhere between half of forever and 4,800 miles later. We found ourselves in Tripoli, Libya, where we slow boiled or broiled for the next 3 years. Not at the pristine beaches of Leptis Magnus and Sabratha, beautiful places, ancient Roman ruins, but 15 miles inland at the northern edge of the Sahara, very near to a place that once held the world surface heat record. The lesson? Several, actually. Scorpions are not your friend. But seriously, I developed a deep and lasting appreciation for what it is to experience discrimination. I was immersed in a culture where I was the only white boy outside of school, a very small school. And to this day, I have a faded scar in the center of my forehead where a local boy, not much older than me, threw a rock, a sharp rock with marksman accuracy, into my forehead from many yards away. I learned over those 3 years that I was the racial and social minority, a complete outsider, a non-native continent, a non-native, and I could not speak Arabic. I'm not comparing my experience to the lifelong struggles of minority people, subjected to never-ending biases and prejudices, rather an immersion process, an isolation during my formative years, where not only did I not learn Arabic, I did not learn English. I did learn that all of us face challenges. Being human is hard. Harder still is to overcome ignorance, prejudice, racism, and the avoidance of our responsibility to hold ourselves accountable for our part in the state of climate change, world, local politics, but especially how we treat one another. From time to time, I touch my scar and give a prayer of thanks for the skill of my neighbor. An inch lower, and I would surely have lost an eye. Skip ahead 3 years, and a jet flying back to the US, and my family began a series of moves. As an Air Force family, we moved over 20 times before I was 18. My older sister and I kept a list of the addresses. Lots of air bases. Biloxi, Mississippi, we survived in a hurricane. Abilene, Texas, a water moccasin in a pit between me and my home and the school. Oh, the joys of childhood. The lesson: there are always dangers if you stray from the path, and it's best that you find your path and commit yourself to it. By the 5th grade, I was back in our glorious Northwest, grateful for the first grade alphabet posters up on the wall above the chalkboards. Grateful as well that I had a patient reading tutor. The lesson: no matter the setbacks, there are opportunities, and if you dedicate yourself to finding and making them, they will appear. My family moved to Salem, Oregon in '69, and I programmed PDP-11s with punched paper tape, joined the 4-H club, the boys club, the rifle club, lesson I learned there: every change in your environment presents challenges and opportunities. And in high school, I worked in a kitchen, cleaning and maintaining machines and serving fellow students. My lesson in high school: humble work does not make you humble, but it does enlighten you to the value of all work, and that most humble jobs are sustained by good people who would rather be somewhere else, but they do what they must with what they have. In my first summer job, I was moving irrigation pipe in a bean field in Polk County. I was not successful. I failed. My first job in junior college was as a graphic artist and as a planetarium host and presenter. I was successful. My first job out of junior college was as a graphic artist for the Woodburn School District, creating educational materials. I was successful. My first potential career position was working in the Oregon State Capitol in the basement as a copy center operator. Now, I share this because the strange thing is that there was no one there to supervise or train me. The copy center manager had up and quit and taken a position across the street at Willamette University. In 2 weeks, I taught myself all I could about copy center services, how to operate all the equipment, and there was work to be done. It was a live environment. Stranger thing, at the end of 2 weeks, I learned that the supervisor I'd never met, the one who had quit, they quit the Willamette job that they took. And there was an opening that I was eminently qualified for. And I got the job. I was successful. Willamette is a curious place. Lots of highly educated professors, very nice people, students, great library. Willamette also offered at the time free tuition for classes that I could arrange outside of my work schedule. So I took math, computer science classes, great learning environment, and came to know a few professors as mentors. So I worked at Willamette for 9 years, and almost every year my responsibilities changed. Copy center manager, purchasing manager, media center manager, and more, and all the roles were additive. I didn't change from one position to another. I took on more responsibilities. One evening, towards the end of that 9 years, I attended a leadership meeting where Willamette hosted the best practices event for the regional higher educational community. And I met the chief financial officer for the Oregon Graduate Institute, OGI. Within a week, I'd received an interview and offer to do everything I'd been doing at Willamette with asset management and grant purchases thrown in. The lesson: strange how if you say yes, not only do things change, they pile up. So I commuted from Salem to Hillsborough every workday for 2 years. My wife and I had promised our oldest son he could finish out junior high school in Kaiser, and that he could pick the high school he would attend. He chose Glencoe High School for its debate program, and so we chose a home nearby, and 2 of my 3 sons were successful in high school debate. The lesson: family always does come first, and changes, like moving to another city, country, or continent, is hard on children, and they need a lot of love and support. So I worked at OGI for 5 years, purchasing manager, other roles, and then auxiliary business operations manager, meaning for a time I was a one-person organization responsible for 3 limited partnerships, commercial real estate, leases, lawsuits, small telephone company, a CLEC called OGI Telecom. The lesson there is that every new role comes with learning opportunities. ways to stretch, challenges to your comfort and balance. Not all roles will add to your strengths, but you will be tested and you will grow from the effort. So I transitioned from OGI to work for OGI Telecom for 7 years. I learned the telecom business from the ground up. Telephone, wiring, switches, pulling cable, fibers, installing vaults and underground conduit. I apprenticed to a lead engineer, and it is remarkable what you can and must learn in a 100% uptime, always on organization. It was at OGI Telecom that my cybersecurity focus shifted. In addition to telecom apprenticeship, I had a host of other responsibilities. Are you noticing a pattern? I was the data engineer. Firewalls, routers, switches, desktop support, field installations of data circuits. I did it all. And in 1996, OGI Telecom was purchased by 2 telecom execs, and we became Integra Telecom. We went from 5 employees, I was the 5th employee, to over 250 in the following 4 years. And in 2019, at the time Integra was absorbed, they had over 2,000 employees. I was responsible for all internal and external networks, new and existing data services, installations, cybersecurity, and more. And the lesson is that I was slow to say no, and that cost me. It took a serious toll on my health and well-being, and each of us need to identify healthy boundaries for our work responsibilities and finding what is sustainable. So saying no is hard for a problem solver or an INFJ or a rescuer type personality. It's hard. But I left Integra Telecom near the time of the dot-com bubble burst, and I was a consultant for just under a year, where I led a team of excellent network engineers in designing a nationwide corporate network infrastructure, and I was successful. The big surprise for the organization was that our solution only cost $4 million and not the $6 million that they'd projected. And at the end of that engagement, I took a small contracting stint at Southwest Washington Medical Center, where they asked me to select and install a new firewall. Upon successful completion, I was asked to look at a draft information security policy to see if I could finish it and make it comprehensive. When I turned it in the next day, Southwest offered me a permanent job. I stayed for 12 years. I became Southwest's, and in 2013, Peace Health's cybersecurity and compliance CISO. The lesson: not all opportunities begin with fanfare or the promise of great potential, but curious paths and small opportunities can lead to rich adventures. So at Southwest and Peace Health, I learned many lessons. Most importantly, I learned what is required and most needed in a leadership role is that leadership without an aligned team is not leadership. Servant leadership is vastly superior to autocratic leadership. And nothing of lasting value is achieved if you can't craft a culture of engagement, compassion, and common purpose. Now, the strengths and weaknesses of each individual, our accountability, the challenges of communication, our capacity, our capabilities, our ability to learn and grow, everyone brings something to the endeavor. And the role of a leader is to role model the desired culture and characteristics. Now, there are literally thousands of books and methodologies on leadership, communication skills, personal development, continuous process improvement. Many of them are helpful, have good insight, but what I've found is that what you bring to your organization in your character determines what is possible. Your character, your integrity, mindfulness, your intent, your passion, your engagement, your capabilities, your competence, your ability to deliver results. What you put in turns the flywheel, and eventually the flywheel spins on its own. You may be fortunate to find a mentor, and I strongly recommend that you do at any stage of your career. But success is not determined by what others do for you, or do to you. Rather, as Mohandas Gandhi has said, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. In 2015, I left Peace Health and joined the city of Portland. My scope of responsibility remains just as broad: governance, cyber risk, compliance. And yet my role has expanded greatly with my engagement in our community, a broader CISO community, deep engagement with federal, state, and especially my dear friends and partners in the county. I've been blessed with many service-oriented peers and associations that all seek to build cyber resiliency across the spectrum. My role as past president of the Portland chapter of the Information Systems Security Association, ISSA, my role within the Portland CIO and CISO forum, wherever I can add lasting value, that's where you will find me. And the lesson? Do good, and your experience will reflect goodness. Open yourself to new, and be careful to say no from time to time. Find peers and mentors wherever you can and pay forward, and all grace will be given to you. Thank you. Appreciate you listening. I'd like to pause and see if there are any questions, or if we could have a little dialogue, and then I'd like to share with you some of the tools and discoveries that I've found along the way. I promise it won't be very long, just a few examples. And Pradeep may be on mute, and I am not seeing questions in the chat channel.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
I was curious, how did you figure out how to say no? Because you risk losing opportunities, you risk creating an impact. What was the turning point for you?
I wasn't very good, as I shared, at saying no. Stretching myself too much, too far, too often, too long. Some might say I stayed in some of my positions for too long. The insight came from my current supervisor, Jeff Baer, the Chief Technology Officer at the City of Portland, where he handed me an ace of diamonds that, instead of the diamond in the centerpiece, it had the word no. So Jeff was kind enough to say, Christopher, though we expect lots of you, we need you to be able to say no sometimes. So it wasn't something that I discovered on my own. It was a gift from a mentor. And it is best that we learn from the gifts and grace of others than to learn the harder way, which is to not learn the lesson and suffer from it. And I see that there's a question, what is your biggest challenge in your role today, and what keeps you awake at night? The biggest challenge, I would say, is that not the perennial cybersecurity question of you've got to get it right 100% of the time and the bad actors only need to get it right once. It's that cybersecurity is complex. It is endlessly evolving. There are many, many elements to it. In one of my tools that I'll share with you in a few minutes, I'll show you a mind map that I crafted way back in 2006 and had been updating it through 2013. And it needs updating because we have cloud and cloud security and Kubernetes and many, many other features that have come to pass since 2013. It's very complex. And I remember that at Interface this year, I gave a talk. I will make sure that that talk is uploaded to the GitHub so that you can watch it. It's a little long, 40 minutes, but it's about asking and answering or attempting to answer the question, which is more complex, quantum entanglement or cybersecurity? I think you might find it illuminating. The thing that keeps me up at night is that it's hard for me to turn off. As you can imagine, I am a continuous learner. I like language, I like words, I like ideas, I like creativity, both artistic and process improvement. So it is hard to turn off the creativity, the mindfulness, oh, if I just take down this note, this will help me tomorrow. So finding a healthy personal balance is probably what keeps me up at night. It's hard to turn off. Dan, thank you for joining. Appreciate you sharing positive feedback, very much so, thanks. Let me share a slide deck, and I promise there won't be any anything untoward in this, and I will make the slide deck available see, and it looks like it's sharing. Wonderful. I'm going to share just 4 tools. The first is an information systems management system, ISMS, and then an information technology service management, ITSM tool. Then a cybersecurity awareness program. I'll just share a slide, something I've developed over the last couple of dozen years. And then finally, a cybersecurity framework. This is part of the NIST CSF. It is an adaptation of it for those who do not have large cybersecurity or information security teams, those who do not have the budget, and those who need to leverage capabilities that they don't yet have, but do need to ask for. The culmination is here at the City of Portland, where I have crafted an information security program and aligned it to national standards. And of course, always it's about adding and here sustaining value. This is a graphical representation of our service catalog. The service catalog is just a part of ITSM service that helps to frame and align services. A tool that we use is an ISMS. If you are familiar at all or interested, the International Standards Organization, the ISO, has a standard series called the 27,000 series. And buried inside that series is a guideline that says, if you craft an ISMS that contains these components, then you would have a comprehensive cyber program. So I took that content, put it into here, a OneNote, poor man's simplified knowledge base, created an index that included the city's cybersecurity service catalog, our internal detailed catalog. Each index references another index of a specific catalog service category. Here's an example of data security. All homegrown, easy to cross-reference, easy to link to internal or external resources. And then, because not everyone may share a common understanding of what's in a service catalog or where does everything fit, what's the taxonomy, the hierarchy, how does it all fit together in a complex service environment? Create extra tabs, one for each of the service catalog items, create a mind map, and you've got your index of indices, and it works really well. Here's an example of what threats might be. Each year, I accumulate progressively as threats relative to the city and or to our community arrive. I can't keep track of all of it, so I have an index of the threat indicators that help me to determine, does this impact our SCADA environment? What is the source of the information? Has it been exploited? The complexity that I described about cybersecurity cannot be contained in hardly anyone's mind. Therefore, it should be within reach. Albert Einstein said, when asked, how do you know so much? And he says, anything that I don't need to remember, I just know where to look it up. Another tool is the IT Service Management Mind Map. Here, this one's from 2013. It creates a graphical, contextual representation of service management, and here in this case, in a security context. And I'll share this and future updates with you freely. Can even share the source material so you can customize it to your environment. This was so popular back in the day that Cisco Systems of San Francisco reached out to me and they said, would you mind sharing the Mind Manager or the raw source material with us, because we have Russian clients that could find great value in this. And I said, sure. My ask is that you send me back a copy of the Cyrillic version. And they did. And it's been used in thousands of organizations. It's not the best mind map for cybersecurity. Obviously, I've not updated it in a while, but it does provide context for, and I point out on the bottom, that it does cross-referencing of models from COBIT to ITIL to ISO. It really does help communicate to those who are not specialists in cybersecurity the context or the location or the relationship between various aspects that one may need to speak to or about with those who are not familiar. So if you print this out on a ledger size, I've mapped it out to 3 by 5 feet in the past and stuck it on a wall, and you can point to things when people come asking questions and provide context. It tremendously helps communication, understanding, and perspective on the complexities of cybersecurity. Another tool that my team uses is a Kanban, a process and task tracker. And while the city does have a an ITSM solution for ticketing and many other purposes. It helps within our small nucleus cybersecurity team to be able to have full visibility, similar to our service catalog and our knowledge base. And that knowledge base isn't everything, it's just the most important things. So that if I were to leave the city or to be hit by the proverbial bus, then a new CISO could step into the role and say, here are my job responsibilities, here's the scope of our service, here's everything that would help me orient in days versus weeks, months, or years. That, to me, is lasting value. Here in, this is an example of dozens that are available on the web, is ClickUp. It's a Kanban task tracker that allows full visibility across the team, shared ownership, accountability, and allows me to, at any time, know what my entire team is doing on any given day and that they are getting things done. I don't have to go and ask, though we meet every week, that we talk every day. This is a tool that allows me to be a leader and allows my team to be specialists and getting things done without me interrupting and asking, what's the status? Or I get a request and I need to provide an update. I have it ready at my fingertips. And I won't go into detail about our security awareness program, but we engage our employees, our authorized users in every way possible, because we know that it isn't just the cybersecurity team or the network team or the support center that maintains the cyber integrity, the posture of an organization. It is the full continuous engagement of the workforce that makes the difference. And finally, I'm going to share our cybersecurity framework, Adaptation. I started this in 2013. Before it became, the CSF was formalized version 1. President Obama had said, here's the option. I took it, I ran with it, and I realized that this is a great tool for communicating cyber risk to the stakeholders and the leadership of an organization. And that there are better practices that come out of it. There's better risk understanding and many other virtues and attributes. There's only a good upside to having a framework that is cost effective and socially responsible and effective in communicating with leadership and those risk stakeholders, where they, again, can hear and understand cyber risk and cyber terms without having to be specialists. This is just a representation of the structure of the true CSF. Lots of details, lots of elements to learn, lots of components that may or may not be applicable to every environment. So what I did was I took the cybersecurity framework and I thought, we need to integrate it and align it with our service catalog. Things must be related. It needs to have risk governance included. It needs the CIS top 20, now it's the top 18. It needs to be fiscally related, so you need a budget, you need actuals, the unfunded, the projected 5 or 3 year plan, depending on your organization. It needs to be aligned to policy. You've got to measure maturity to show where you've been and where you're going. You've got to define for leadership what your challenges are in terms of maturity and where investment in cybersecurity benefits the organization. And then you need to map out, what are you going to do with the money? What are you going to do with your program quarter by quarter? What are the key metrics? How do we improve our program? That can all fit on one page. Maybe a legal size page or a ledger, but it can fit on one page. And for leadership and decision makers, one page that is consistent, that they see again and again, not different textured PowerPoint presentations, but one familiar, trustworthy representation goes a very long way. So to speed things up, the CSF, I added risk, I added budget, I added maturity, I added a 5-year roadmap, and I put it together. And I shared this with about 200 other hospitals while I worked at Southwest and Peace Health, and they ate it up. Then I shared it on the speaking circuit, and they ate it up. I think there are at least several dozen cities that are using this, at least several hundred hospitals still using it. Vancouver Clinic emailed me just a couple weeks ago, and they said, cannot tell you what the last 7 years have been like using this tool. And this is not meant as inflationary for me. It's that, wow, let's find tools, let's find simplified methodologies to help people get things done and to add value. I will share this with you, the actual templates in the workbooks. This is an earlier version. There's a new one out that's also being updated and revised for a 3rd revision to incorporate the CIS revisions that were just made and other elements that have been updated. But this one tool allows you, whether it's cybersecurity related or not, to speak to those stakeholders who are responsible for governance, those who are responsible for operations, those that want to see the whole picture, those that want to focus on priorities, risks, dollars, or those who want to say, please explain where you are in this section, this category of the maturity arc. What have your successes been? What are your challenges? Where are you envisioning going next? All of those things are related to risk, cyber risk and organizational risk, and it makes a very powerful tool for communicating risk, advantage, opportunities, and costs, all from a single tool. And I think that makes 4 items, and I thank you for your attention and your engagement. Thank you all.
Well, thank you, Christopher. I appreciate your very insightful presentation tonight. Love learning your journey from a globetrotter as a young kid to moving irrigation pipe, to your years in telecom, to setting up firewalls at Peace Health, and to where you are now as a servant leader at the City of Portland. So thank you. Also, thank you for sharing your treasure trove of tools that we can literally use today, especially the CSF. I love that. Lastly, congratulations for being the 2021 recipient of the Oregon CISO of the Year Award. Very much well-deserved. All right, folks, before we sign off, we'll make sure we'll share the link to Christopher's tools on GitHub. And thank you for attending tonight's presentation. Just a reminder, we will not have a regular chapter meeting in December, but we'll have our annual holiday party event. You'll hear more about it in the coming weeks. So thank you and good night. Pradeep, do you have any final words?
No. Is there any questions out of the audience? Anybody want to speak up?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Jiho. I'm a BIS major student at Oregon State University. I'm also vice president of Business Information Systems Club. It was a great presentation. Thanks for sharing. If you have any advice to students studying information system, could you share a little bit?
Certainly. I think when I shared to find a mentor, I think that is probably the most leveraged advantage that you can find. There are lots of studies, lots of books, lots of specializations, lots of things to explore and sample. And those who have blazed the trail in advance can help you find your passion, find your interest. I have several mentees in the past who have said, well, I really want to focus on e-discovery, or I want to focus on network operations security, or I want to focus on log analysis. I want to get into the details. Others have said, how do you find a job that does policy and governance? Who hires such people? So finding resources, participating in community organizations, wherever you are, there are several cybersecurity groups that would love to have you as an active member. The SIM is an excellent group to find resources and partners. Reach out, be brave, say yes until you've reached your capacity, digest it for a while, and then stretch out again, because it's through that extension of yourself, testing yourself, allowing yourself to fail, allowing yourself to learn that not every opportunity is an affirmation of the yes, and that eventually you will find where you have to say no more than yes, but at least you'll be in a place where when those who come to you and they say, Christopher, you know, you've been around a long time, you've done so many different things, where would I go to find something? It's easy. It is a blessing to be able to share, to help discover, and many of those that I have helped along the way come back to me days, years later saying, Christopher, here's a new resource that you may not have known. So I am an avid collector of information, but I then turn it around into an avid sharing of information. And I try not to overwhelm everyone or anyone with too much information, because as you can tell, I tend towards the verbose side. It's really important for me to learn how to listen, how to receive, how to truly understand what it is that you're asking of me, because I never treat it as a challenge to my character. I treat it as a challenge to the task of my hands. How can I open them further? How can I extend my arms further? So do reach out. Be happy to connect with you via LinkedIn or through the SIM, any way that you can identify what's important in the near future, what your long-term vision is. There are lots of us around to help. Thanks for asking, Cheryl.
No, thanks for sharing your advice. That means really a lot. Well, now I have a homework to find a mentor. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
All right, is there anybody else? If not, I think the one on our calendar, we have a book club coming up in December on titled Invisible Woman. Is about biases in the workplace. It's a pretty good book for all leaders to read. And if you're interested in joining a discussion, we'll be meeting in December for that one. Then, as Jordan alluded to you, that we for SIM members, we have our virtual Christmas event with breakout rooms and different activities in those. So it was pretty fun last year. We'll do that again this year. And this anything else, we will go back to our regular session in January. We always meet our regular meetings the second Wednesday of each month, so January through May. So with that, thank you all for joining tonight, and have a very good evening.